We are less than a month away from Election Day on November 4th. Early voting kicks off in just over 2 weeks on October 25th. The race for mayor, of course, is the main event for many voters, but there will be many other key races on your ballot, including the race for public advocate. Tonight, we were set to hold a debate for public advocate that was set up under guidelines determined by the city's campaign finance board. But not all candidates met those requirements, and we decided to do something different. We invited all of the candidates on the program for a conversation about their campaigns. The public advocate Jumaane Williams declined that invitation to participate, but the two other candidates on the ballot are joining me now to talk about the key issues that are top of mind for voters. Gonzalo Duran is the Republican nominee for public advocate. Marty Dolan is running as an independent candidate on the Unity Party line. That will all be on your ballot. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
As we mentioned, the winner of this race is going to take office in less than 90 days. They have a very important job. The most important of the jobs is to serve as second in line, or first in line, really, to become mayor if need be, if something should happen to the mayor. Let's start by just tell us a little bit about your background or your preparation that makes you ready for that immense responsibility.
So I spent 40 years as a business doctor. I came from very humble beginnings. My dad was from Argentina. We lived what I call the immigrant life. There were 9 of us in a little apartment. But I lived through the New York City bankruptcy, and I became aware of a guy named Felix Rowayton. So I said, that's the guy I want to be, because Felix was the guy who came in and fixed everything for New York. And I think that's what we need. I call it, you need to reload the code. There's a code that New York has been following for the last decades, which is we're going to try to take care of everybody. We're going to try to take care of everybody. And I think that code, it's kind of an impossible mission. And I think that I've seen in my experience working as a business doctor with big organizations, if the mission isn't right from the top, you end up with a lot of inefficiency and a lot of frustrated people. I think we need to take a step back and say, what is the right mission for a progressive city? What are the things that we can do, and what are the things that we should no longer be doing? And that's what I'm trying to contribute to this race.
Okay, talk a little bit about government, because in particular, again, on January 1st, you're the public advocate. Something should happen to the mayor. God forbid they get hit by a bus. They have to go out of town. Some other reason. They resign, which has been known to happen. What makes us believe, how should we interpret your experience as meaning you're ready to become the mayor?
Okay, so the public advocate doesn't actually become the mayor full time. What happens is the public advocate is supposed to be independent of the mayor, which is why I'm not really lining up with either candidate. The legal requirements are that you're supposed to call a re-election for the mayoralty. So it's not necessarily the case that the public advocate would become the mayor. You're supposed to supervise a process, independent process, where you might be one of the candidates for mayor. We had, in this last election, there were like 8 candidates for mayor. So I think there's a good chance that if, God forbid, something happened to the mayor, there'd be plenty of good candidates. And there'd be a period of, I think it's 85 days, where you have to kind of just make sure that things are going. And there's plenty of commissioners, there's plenty of talent in New York, so I'm not too worried about that.
Okay, Mr. Duran.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Having a conservative Republican at this level it's a rare thing, so it's awesome to have. My background, I'm a former United States Marine Sergeant, Iraq veteran. In the military, I was an administrator, so most of my time was helping service members with their needs administratively, but also building up organizations from the bottom up. Coming back home, I've had difficulties, but I, fought them. New York One has played those segments on me regarding those work efforts that I did, helping pass local law 119. So as a nonprofit leader in that capacity, I've been working in 13 years, so I've done pretty much anything and everything New York City has to offer when it comes to services and projects and et cetera. And then as the vice chairman for the Bronx Conservative Party, I've been engaged with the politics for quite a bit, moving up to the level where I'm the second highest position in New York City working. When it comes to administratively, if something did happen to the mayor and I had to take charge, my leadership ability, I'm not the expert level at the legislative part, but I believe one key component that we need is good leaders in our electoral system right now, especially right now with what's going on. And then also taking account to the things that are plaguing New York City. I think we have a functioning system, but we need to cut spending and push more to start following policies and procedures, to be honest.
Tell us a little bit about Local Law 119.
Yes, so when I came back home, I was struggling not because I didn't have money or the education or the things that I needed, but the landlords would not take the GI Bill fund as credible income. So what I did was I made it a national issue. So all the major networks across the country, New York One, like I said, did a couple spots on it. And let's say I started it in 2013, 2016, another organization did the write-up, and actually Jumaane Williams was pushing it towards making it into law.
Mm-hmm. For both of you, the public advocate presides over meetings of the full city council and is an ex officio non-voting member in a lot of ways of the city council. They can serve on committees, they can't cast votes, but they can introduce legislation. So if elected, describe a bill that you might want to introduce.
Well, for one particular one is trying to push back on the city of Yes. I think that's something that I know legality is starting to round up, but I know there's a few city council members that are trying to repeal it. I would try to co-sponsor with them. I would try to get more community involvement. I know for community boards across the city, there was a lot of issues with the ratifications that they wanted in it, but their voices didn't get heard in those situations. So I would be pushing towards that.
What is it that you don't like about the city of Yes?
Well, that it takes away a lot of the power from the people. So like, let's say the lithium battery plant that I fought with Curtis Sewell, who's running for mayor, in multiple, you can build up a power plant without telling anybody in the general area that you're doing it. So no paperwork has to be pointed. It goes past the community boards and the environmental rules that are now bypassed. You know, these are things that the common person want to fight back, but nobody's listening to them.
Okay. What would you introduce as legislation?
Okay, so this comes back to what I'm calling reload the code, which is let's have a new mission. And I think if you look at the Democratic Party and you look at their relationship with the Republican Party, independents, and how we stand nationally, I think people are really looking for unity. They're looking for, there's a lot of fragmented policies that the progressives are proposing. And that may be this good for this person and good for that person. I think it's the best thing for us now to focus on a few bigger targets that everybody can get behind, Republicans, independents, Democrats. So what I'd like to do is really focus on our young kids, focus on the age 10 to 25. I call it turning learners into earners. Because kind of once you get to 26 years old, you're kind of good to go. And if you don't get to 26-year-old and you're stuck at that minimum wage thing, then you have a permanent affordability crisis in your life. So what I'm proposing is that we rebate on their 26th birthday all the taxes that everybody's paid in the period up until then. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to make it crystal clear to the kids, to the parents, and the teachers that their mission is to get kids to work. Get them through school, get them paying attention, get them working, and let them accumulate some money. Now, this is actually a model that's already in New York in the SUNY system. So in the SUNY system, what happens is the state effectively subsidizes tuition for in-state learners because later on they're going to earn more money, and they get more tax revenue later, and they pay out less social services later. So I'm taking the concept of the SUNY system, which everybody likes. You get lower tuition if you go in state, and I'm saying let's treat each of our young people as though they're a state university. Let's kind of subsidize them to get started, and if they get off to a good start at age 26, our budget's going to come down later. They're not going to get stuck at the minimum wage, and everybody's going to be better off. And I think that's a good bill to introduce as your first one because, as I said, that's good for Republicans, good for independents, good for the far left and the middle left.
Okay. I want to bring up another power of the public advocate. The public advocate appoints a member to the city's planning commission, which of course recently approved that sweeping rezoning known as the City of Yes. If you're elected, what instructions would you give your appointee to the planning commission? In other words, what kind of development, housing development in particular, you think the city needs?
Okay, this is a longer topic. I think when you go back to my reload the code, which is we want to get young people focused, I think the city has to look hard at what it's doing with NYCHA. I think that NYCHA has become a one-way street. It's kind of like one of these streams that just flows and then the water kind of gets stagnant. What I've proposed, this isn't directly related to planning, but what I've proposed is that we provide mortgages to the good long-term tenants of NYCHA and we give them a path for home ownership. I'm so far more radical than the radicals. I'm not saying freeze the rent. I'm saying let's just give them the apartments. You can see that up in the Bronx, you know, the buildings are falling apart. The city's not a good manager. So I think the better thing for the city over the long run would be to start to get out of the housing market, to start to take more of a financial role than a managerial role. And if I was going to appoint somebody to this commission, I'd point somebody who thought that way. And there are a lot of other issues we can talk about, which is one of the things that's really broken about New York City is that we have 51 city council seats and 58 community boards and 77 police precincts. So when you overlap those, I call it, it's a complete mess. What I would like to see long term, this is going to take a little time, is why wouldn't we have 60 to 65 common units that are local, so that the border of the city council, the border of the community board, and the border of the police precinct is the same border.
Co-terminality. I haven't heard. I have not heard that concept in a number of years.
And then wait a second.
Yeah.
And then you devolve. What you have now is you have a system of complaints, because people don't know who to call to complain. They call the public advocate office. I don't want 20 million complaints, because really 90% of the complaints in the city are local. But if you had a commonality of border and you devolved responsibility, and then last thing, and I'll let Gonzalo have his turn, I like to name them, the beautiful names. I think calling something Community Board 2 or City Council, that's what they do in Switzerland or Germany. Call it Corona or call it the Throg's Neck.
There's multiple neighborhoods in a community board.
Let them vote.
There's a civil war there about whether it's Prospect Heights or North Crown Heights, right?
Well, I would say I want to start running as quick as we can, because New York already has all the data it needs on what we need to get done, and just implementing that stuff. Let's say I would tell them, look, first of the things I wanted to start pushing is there's a lot of vacant homes, stabilized control, NYCHAs that need repair. Let's start finding out how we can get those pushed. Once again, there's organizations in place, but getting it implemented, pushing that information immediately for the people that need the repair, and then taking execution of those things. When it comes to the community boards, once again, the data is already there. Talk to the community members. They want to keep their character there, so how can we, once again, I understand City of Yes is gonna happen, but we can fight it at a certain point. What we can do is try to, instead of having maybe a zone 8 to 10, maybe make it even lower, try to stop them from making it so high, so we can keep the characters of the neighborhoods. And then, there's other things that we can do, but those are the two most important things, I think.
Okay, candidates, stand by. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversation with these two candidates running for public advocate in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where I am once again joined by two of the candidates running for public advocate, Republican candidate Gonzalo Duran and Independent Marty Dolan. It's time for our lightning round. I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions, and please answer briefly, maybe yes or no to most of them. What was the last park of the city that you visited, Mr.
Astoria Park.
Mr. Duran.
Crotona Park.
Okay. Mr. Duran, what is your favorite subway line?
I would say the 2 and the 5, because I live across the street from it.
Okay, there you go.
The E-train.
The E-train. Mr. Dolan, how often do you take public transportation?
Every day.
All right. Mr. Duran?
Every day.
Every day. Have you purchased legal marijuana, Mr. Duran?
No, never.
Never.
Okay. Mr. Dolan, do you support casinos in the 5 boroughs, and if so, where?
So because I'm a citywide candidate, I've attended most of the hearings. I do support the process. I think the ones where they're having very little impact on the community, for example, City Field, I think that's a really good proposal.
Okay.
I don't support it in the Bronx, and I don't support it in New York City.
Oh, okay. And what is the last book you read, Mr. Duran?
To Kill a Mockingbird.
I read Quentin Tarantino's Filmology.
Ah, okay. Do you think Madison Square Garden should be relocated in order to accommodate Penn Station?
I think Penn Station needs to be fixed. I'm a big believer in what I call public beauty and public architecture. In fact, I want to put pedestrian and bike bridges over the East River that are not like these prison
MSG,
things.
Though. What about MSG?
MSG, I'm going to leave that to, that's too complicated to answer here.
Okay.
I think MSG is fine where it is, but from my understanding, it wasn't about Penn Station. It was just about getting another MSG location. So.
Yeah, well, asking them to move it 1 inch is quite a struggle, as you will find out if you become public advocate. What's your favorite sports team?
Yankees.
Yankees.
Yankees. Should Rikers Island be closed?
No, I think it's in a good location for its purpose.
Same.
Okay. Has congestion pricing been a success as far as you're concerned?
I haven't seen any real changes.
Okay.
Yes.
Dolan. Yes. Should New York continue to be a sanctuary city?
New York should never have been a sanctuary city. I think one of the problems with New York is the conceit that it's a city-state and it can just operate, independently of the federal government. I think it was a huge mistake. And now you see there's this huge struggle to clean it up.
I wouldn't say that we should change it, but in my term, I would like to try to get that repealed.
Okay. Who were you supporting in the race for mayor?
Curtis Sewa.
Running mate, yes.
I'm trying to stay out of it. I think the public advocate, people think the public advocate works for the mayor. The public advocate works for the people. And I'm going to have a sharp eye on whoever's elected.
Okay. Does our city need more police officers, fewer police officers, or is the current level just about right?
More cops.
We need to increase it. I don't have an exact number, but more than 5,000, but less than 10.
Do you support lifting the cap on charter schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's get to another question here. The public advocate is the chair of something called the Commission on Public Information and Communications, COPIC for short, which is supposed to provide public access to city information to make government more transparent by educating the public, assisting with access to information, recommending new technology. If you are elected, how would you try and fulfill those responsibilities?
You have to start by simplifying the budget. I can do it for people on my fingers. Each finger is $10 billion, and you have to break it down for the people so they can understand it. And then I think you really have to take the approach of an educator. I think what the current public advocate does, what often you get the very partisan politicians do, is they try to explain everything as though it's a conspiracy theory, when the reality is that choices are made sometimes because of budget decisions. So I would like to, in particular, focus on success metrics. For example, we have $40 billion that we spend on the schools. That's $500,000 per kid to go from K to 12. But only half the kids can read, write, or do math at grade level. So for me, day one, that's the metric I'm going to focus on, because I think if you can produce a steady stream of kids who are off to a good start, then the budget comes down later. And it's righteous. It's the right way to do things. I wouldn't be marching on Wall Street. I wouldn't be protesting on this and that and the other thing. I think the basic job of the city is to provide an opportunity for young people to flourish in a city.
I'm glad you asked that, because nobody has ever asked me that question publicly. As someone who's been working in journalism and paper and media for 13 years already, I've seen the back end of it. I know a lot of the problems that we have is that a lot of these elected officials do not want the message to be out there. I want to push not only the laws that are going out, the charter reviews, the community board things, so we can get more civic engagement across the city.
And is that something you would do even if you weren't elected? It sounds like this is...
This is something I've been doing, and I will continue doing if I got the position, obviously within my capacity, though.
I want to talk about a situation that is relatively new. President Trump has repeatedly announced plans to send military personnel to different cities, including New York, with the stated goal of, quote, cleaning up crime and other problems. How should the public advocate respond to that?
Obviously, we should be working with the president, not against him. This is something where the NYPD Blue just sent 1,000 cops to the Bronx. Governor Hochul has sent troops, National Guards, to the subways. This is something where I think I would like, because I'm big on safety, is to try to get to the point where we don't need them, but if he brought them, I would welcome it and try to work with them, but also working with the NYPD, because we do have the best force there is.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a leader of something called Let's Restore Roosevelt Avenue, which is a difficult area of Queens. We were a bipartisan coalition of Democrats and Republicans. We actually, when the administration was focused on other things, we were the ones who were responsible for Kathy Hochul sending in the state National Guard to Roosevelt Avenue, and it made a big difference. I think when you talk about President Trump, you go back to a key thing with the Democratic Party, which is since 2016, the Democrats have basically been anti-Trump. Anything he says, they're against it. And we've lost almost half a generation of like good policies of our own. That's why I talk about no taxes for young people. I want young people to come to New York and get to work. I don't want to really talk about what President Trump is doing. People will vote for us down the road if they look and they say, this is what the Democrats stand for. So it's not that I don't really care what President Trump does, but we know he kind of does this today, and then next month he does something else. I wouldn't really focus on it as a city. On our city, what we should do is we should educate the kids. We should take steps to make this street safe, make the subways work, and do our jobs. And
this is no longer a hypothetical. What if what happens here is what happened in Chicago? You're busy trying to educate the kids. There's Black Hawk helicopters and people doing raids in buildings without coordinating with the local government in any way, shape, or form. If you're part of that local government, what do you do?
I'm not going to be protesting against that. I think these things come in waves. I think you have to just kind of let them wash over you. I think a lot of this is political for Trump. This is his style. And he's looking to bait the cities into a reaction. In the meantime, if the crime rate goes down a little bit, I'm okay with that. I want to stay focused. I want to hold the city's leaders' feet to the fire. On every Monday, instead of publishing a bad landlord list, I want to be at a school that's not doing well and say, how come this school is not doing a better job? Mm-hmm. We need to be obsessed with our city, every part of it, not obsessed with what political theater Trump is playing.
Well, let me ask you about one of the last of the central jobs of the public advocate. The office is expected to answer constituent service calls for matters including broken traffic lights, late benefit payments, possible eviction, other problems. What part of your background gives you experience in dealing with those kind of issues?
So I worked at some massive companies. I was a senior banker at JP Morgan, and I understand what it was like to work at a very significant entity. I worked with regulators all over the world during the financial crisis. I helped restructure the housing market and put things back together. I think it comes down to understanding what the responsibility is. And the responsibility is you have to have a complete understanding that your responsibility is to be responsive. You have to understand where to take the complaints, take them seriously, and staff up accordingly. I think the difficulty that we have now is that the current administration is first of all, they're distracted by running for an election, and they're distracted, they're marching on Wall Street. Why are they marching on Wall Street? Wall Street pays 25% of our taxes. They're some of our best citizens. And how can you be marching on Wall Street and protesting against ICE and protesting against Sanctuary City, and the schools are terrible, and you're not responding to the complaints? So I think when I'm public advocate, we're going to just keep it simple. We're just going to do the job that's in front of us. We're not going to get distracted by this and that protest. And we'll answer the complaints as they come in.
Okay, Mr. Duran.
My whole life, I've been working for this position, basically. I've been a leader, a mentor, not only as a Marine, but as a nonprofit leader. I mentor on the weekends, I didn't mention this, but as a chaplain and as a mentor for at-risk teens on my weekends, I've trained individuals. What I would love to do, because of my background, is implement those structures all over New York City so that we don't just have one main public advocate, but we have many across that are ready and civically engaged and have the abilities so we can fight back as a united group and not just one person running around trying to do it.
If I could make one more point, Gonzalo, who, by the way, I'm endorsing Gonzalo, and he's endorsing me. So I think what the public advocate should have is you should have a public advocate buddy in each community board. There isn't one, okay? And then I think you should take the roles of the community boards much more seriously. So what you should do is the community board should be more locally elected than they are appointed. But the public advocate should be getting the community board reports every morning. You get about 3 of them every morning. And you should have a buddy there. And then you understand, is this a centralized complaint? Or is this a complaint for Astoria or for Throgs Neck or for Bensonhurst?
All right, in our final minute, I'll give you 30 seconds each to make your pitch directly to the voters. Take a look right there into camera 12 and tell them what you have to say, Mr. Duran.
I've served my country, the state, and the city my whole life. I'm a prime example of what you can do if you work hard and you apply yourself in the right way. I think this position, it fits me perfectly. And not only have I been doing basically the same thing over the years, but I think given the opportunity, I can be a voice for across all party lines, all individuals, not just any particular subgroups or parties or races or anything like that. I would work for the people. I'm ready to do it 24/7, 365 days, no vacations, no nothing. And if I do the job well, I hope to get reelected.
Okay. Mr. Dolan.
Sure. Looking in this camera?
Yes, indeed.
Jumaane Williams has been public advocate for 6 years. He's taken $3 million from New York City and New York State, and he hasn't bothered to show up for tonight's conversation. When I started this campaign a year ago, I called it a referendum on socialism. I think that's what New York needs. We achingly need to decide, are we going to sort of slip into socialism, or are we going to consciously become a socialist city? I represent the non-socialist option. I represent a chance to reload the code, is what I call it. Just let's reload our mission around young people, around the schools, around back to basics, and setting our standards at a global level. We should have things that are the best in New York City, not things that are mediocre.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in. Best of luck, gentlemen. We'll see you out on the campaign trail. Best of luck on Election Day.